Ego. Whoa, that person has really big ego. Ego is a bad character trait. Get rid of your ego. You hear people say all the time because ego is bad, isn't it? So many people seem to accept this idea in such a generally established fashion. It seems to be true, right? What if it's super and utterly wrong, and I can explain how, and I can explain what people really mean by ego, and I actually have a huge ego, and you undoubtedly need to have a big ego, and ego is actually a good thing, and there's something else lurking disgustingly in the shadows, eating you up, putting the good name of friendly neighborhood ego as a human shield to take the heat while it does all the damage unchecked like a slime ball. And you need to listen now because I have a lot of explaining to do, and I will, because having this realization made me change my whole perspective of life and my whole perspective of life for the better, and I feel like I need to share that with whoever wants to listen. So, vanity and ego is the theme of this conversation. Therefore, what is ego and how can you differentiate it from vanity? So, super simplified explanation for ego is overall you. The ego is you. The ego is pretty much what makes you. Conscience, your will, your perception of yourself, your instinct, your very notion of self-preservation, your mind, the notion of what is accepted and understood as your spirit, that energy, that battery inside of you pushing you forward is you, your ego. Alright, ego. According to Freud, because people are prone to listen to you if you quote important characters from the past, even if they don't really know anything about them or if they're actually good or if they're actually worth it or not or whatever. Fact check. Remember, always remember to fact check. Don't just listen to whoever. Moving on. Id, instincts, ego, reality, superego, morality. People accept second-hand statements as a mean to say of energy. It's a whole different conversation. So, what gives ego a bad rap in the minds of people? Well, simplification is a good way to put it. Our survival instincts leads us to accept on face value patterns that others have already prepared for us to save energy and establish their place in the group. So, as many other things, others have willingly or unwillingly established the misconception of ego as bad and as the face of the real enemy, his dark, twisted sibling. You know who I'm talking about, vanity. Vanity, and more of that later. Now, in order to come to terms and reunite with your ego in the healthy and balanced manner it was always destined to be, we need to dissect this, pull everything apart and put all the gory, fascinating, and disgusting gross guts and parts on the table and learn. Okay? Ego is your self-perception, your identity, your will, your soul. We established that. Now you can identify vanity. Now, how can you identify vanity? Well, vanity is very similar to ego. Thus, the confusion. I think not thus the confusion. But in contrary to ego, vanity is the distorted notion of the self. Defining aspects of vanity include arrogance, overappreciation of oneself, excessive regard of one's appearance, one's character traits, one's beliefs, and overrated sense of self-value in regard to everybody else, amongst other things. You know how it is. As you can start to figure out, ego and vanity can be very easy to get mixed up, but this is where just stop and thinking a little bit comes in and makes all the difference. You see, it all does start with your ego. That's true. Without the I, there's no ego or vanity. Without the I, the self, by I mean the self, there's actually nothing at all. Without the self, there's nothing really at all. For example, you'll see why the first goal to anybody trying to brainwash you is attacking your notion of yourself in cult, in propaganda, in like everything you see nowadays in literally every form of media ever. But yeah, okay, so you'll see why the first goal to anybody trying to brainwash you is attacking your notion of yourself. But that's a topic for another conversation. Right now, our goal is to learn how to achieve ideal security, confidence, humility, and wisdom without pesky arrogance, ignorance, and narcissism of vanity. You could say it's simply be humble, be honest, get good bread. But that just doesn't work. We all know that's just it doesn't just work like that. Honestly, reflection, empathy, and education. Yeah, empathy sounds cheesy, I know, but empathy and education, it sounds corny. It's easy to say it, but those things are key part of it actually. Listen, I know you're not gonna achieve anything with such a lackluster Captain Planet bitch ass statement of you need to have empathy and fucking you need to be humble and whatever. But okay, we can dive deeper than that. We can dive deeper where you can find the hows and the where, and very importantly, the why. Why do I need to get Gubert? achieve achieve a high ego without the corrosion of vanity. Why do I need this so-called enlightenment of ego? This get Gubert, get Gubert, working on my security, humility. Is that even a word? Humility? Look at me trying to give a speech here, not even knowing words. Knowledge, wisdom, and capacity when I can just be a loud, lazy douchebag who gets everything easy, fast, with terrible consequences, by the way. But fast. You'll see what I mean by terrible consequences. Well, besides being the total basic bitch to do things, that is also a total. Well, that's it. It is a total bitch ass way to do things. But besides that, I mean, we can do better than that. We can get deeper. Trust me. I know. It's not even that hard. We can start here. Listen up. We can start here. It's all matter of recognition. Ego, vanity. Let's look through these traits that people usually associate with both of them, but ego seems to get all the bad rap. I know people know how to recognize vanity, but they usually just associate it with ego, and they take like vanities like this little thing that doesn't really matter, that doesn't have the impact that basically people just tend to call ego everything, and they just tend to simplify everything. It's just ego, and vanity is just like, oh, okay, whatever. But it's not. It's not. Confidence, security, self-esteem, arrogance, self-centeredness, superficiality, pride, self-overvalue. Hey, wait a minute. Is that even a term at all? Self-overvalue? I've never heard that. I just look at me with my big ego here making up things that I'm not even sure. I call it anyways. That's it. Yeah, I call it. It's official now. Self overvalue. If it wasn't a thing anymore, it is now. I call it sense of superiority and cynicism. All those traits share a common link in between, but are actually separated. It's extremely easy to confuse the two things because one stems from the other, but it's also very easy to distinguish which one is the most important one, and the other one's just kind of baggage on you. You need ego to fit into the notion that you matter, that you have value, but you can totally ditch vanity and actually achieve the same results and then some. Actually, vanities, people feel, have the idea that vanity makes them more than what they are. In reality, it's very hindering, it's extremely crippling, it's very limiting. It's a total bitch ass way to be honest. It's kind of laughable and pitiful when you really think about it. Sorry, but it's true. Hear me out. Why is that? Let's imagine we have our ideal goal as a person. Whenever a parent has a child, for example, most commonly, at least most commonly, that's like you hope that that's what people usually aim at. The dream is to see that child grow up as a secure, humble, knowledgeable, wise, and capable person. It doesn't always happen like that. Just look at TikTok right now and Twitter and whatever. But still, let's put a person on. Let's put our person on the table and try to raise it, for shits and giggles. Let's teach it to appreciate the value of work and effort that leads to learning and becoming something, but what exactly? Teaching somebody what you actually know and put that in practice leads to tangible example, which is the one thing that human beings actually do learn. Examples. That all summons up to ego, trust me. What are examples in your daily life? Okay, let's say you teach the most common thing, how to function in life. Just to use an example. There obviously you can go on and on and on and on, but let's just use one of the most basic as examples ever. How to function in life. And that function in life is one of the main functions to even survive at all for anybody. Socialization. We are a social species, and that one skill is a crucial tool to determine our success in pretty much everything in our future. Success and ego go together, so the ideas we learn about success determine everything in our personality. So the past traits I mentioned, confidence, security, self-esteem, knowledge, wisdom, capacity, all those things that I just mentioned previously. Those things can be taught, but only with positive, tangible reinforcement can actually be learned. By that I mean examples. And by examples, meaning the shit you see happen in front of you and you feel the consequences of that because it's fucking in front of you and you're feeling that. So being honest, knowledgeable, capable, etc. leads to the one in front of you feeling, learning that, which is very good for the ego. Okay, yeah, so that's why it's important to just teach what you know and be honest. When you do that, it's contagious. People identify that. People ain't that stupid. People identify that it's tangible and people get it. That is why good leaders don't have to do a lot of effort. Sometimes they don't have to preach or anything. They just do, and people see that and they follow, and they do later and they learn. All right. Learning and practicing is the way to success, but bad examples can lead to distorted learning, which leads to mistakes of practice, and that ego you believe you have, make note of that, is left exposed, vulnerable, and nobody wants that. When you make mistakes, when you haven't learned well, when you're going in erroneous way, let's say you're gonna make mistakes, and then that ego is left to be hurt, and that is when the vanity shield comes in. For example, now you have a person who's been taught good manners, for example, social rules and interaction skills to pose as somebody who knows how to stand out in society by knowing how to make people like them, learning how to make people share their goals and fitting in social groups, all that shit. Sure. But if in spite of that, that person was fed the idea that it was better than everybody else, usually by example, usually by the people around them, that person's examples, acting up themselves as if they were being better than everybody else, if they were superior than everybody else in one way or another, usually by some economical or social status or whatever, or racial, or you name it, political, whatever. What's most likely going to happen is that those examples that that person had are going to make that person get that learned idea that they're also superior than everybody else because they saw that. Again, as I said, it's easier to learn by example than by just words and teachings. The basic common person only learns by examples. Only the wisest people learn by words, by warnings, or lessons. It's more rare. Going back to what I was talking about, that is a damaging way to teach right there. And even though a lot of people can argue with me on how it actually works at the end of the day and whatever, and I, with my big ego, can assure it doesn't really work in the real picture. The damage done right there is that that person, our fictional ideal person that we were creating before, that person is going out with the wrong tools to work with people, to work socially. Remember, we are a social species. Even nowadays, yeah, it's hard to believe, but yeah, we're a social species. And more than less friction is going to accumulate. Yeah, I know friction is inevitable and all that, it's true. But still, you can avoid as much as possible. And you can avoid the impact of friction to be too high. Friction is going to accumulate more than it needs to be. It's inevitable, but it doesn't have to be so common. Something's gonna happen that is going to blow up once and once more and again in life, and even if seemingly that person is doing superficially great, negativity is going to build up, leading to damage the person has little skills to counter, which is a problem that still needs fixing somehow. Leading to damage the person has little skills to counter, which is a problem that still needs fixing somehow. And since nature is always going to have another way to do things, your mind is going to use the next thing it's going to find at hand. A coping shield, a vanity shield. You see where I was going with all this shit? I'm sure you had already figured it out, but still. A shield of arrogance, a bloated sense of superiority, of self-importance, somebody who obsesses on their appearance, their achievements, their belongings, whatever they can find that can disguise their fucking failure, because they're literally those things, those little things are literally everything they have, because they don't know any better, and that's just damn lame. That's just lame and pathetic, and a sure recipe for future social disaster if you perpetuate that learned behavior in mass. It's like pretty much the world right now, if you, I mean, to be honest. And something that can be very simply avoided. That's the thing. It's like it's not even that complicated. Like being humble, for example. I get as again as I was saying previously. Yeah, that sounds Captain Planet type of shit, but it's true. That's only because it's fucking true. How? As I was stating previously, teaching only as much as you know. That's very important. Chill, you know, chill out, and that's a part of learning how to be humble. Just teaching as much as you know, listening. You may say, I'm not trying to teach. You do try to teach. Everybody tries to teach. Everybody teaches something. That's a topic for another. For another total discussion. But everybody is a teacher. That's that's why I always say teaching only what you know. Don't be a fucking loudmouth. Anyways, moving on. Listening and giving others their proper spotlight. Sharing, and by that I mean taking what you need and leaving enough for the rest. Yeah, that has a lot to do with ego, and that has a lot to do with everything that I have been speaking of here. Being honest and always open to learn and adapt. That is basically what makes humility. I mean, obviously it's more complicated than that, but that's a simple gist of it, really. And it's one of the most powerful tools a person can develop, and all those things are not just bullshit ass social rules to keep you off trouble. No, 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 no. That's an absolute key to having capable, smart, secure, and strong people, which leads to an entire society having those traits. If you have more people like that, you just can't have an entire society that is going to share those things. And in general, that society is going to be stronger. And that's the only way we're ever going to make it further than going extinct in like a couple of years because we thought paying more than $1.50 for an encrypted image is just a viable economical option for improving society or whatever. Okay. Well, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it here. We could go deeper and deeper and deeper into that. You can talk more and more and more on that, but I think I talked for enough time. It was it was good to talk about these things. This is shit that I care about. This is this is things that I actually care about. That's important to me and my huge ego. You see why I do that? I don't have big pure numbers right now at the moment I'm recording this at all. But it's okay. I don't need validation to do what's important to me. See what I did? No, vanity aside doesn't really matter. It's just like do things if it's right for you and it's constructive for you, at least for you. Never mind. uh, I'm still happy. That's important to me. Okay, I'll stop. Okay, I'll fucking stop. I promise. You see how this is important to me and constructive to me and doesn't really interfere with anything else that I do and makes me happy to do it. Makes my ego healthier, but I don't have any validation to for doing it. No external validation or anything feeding into vanity because that's not necessary at the end of the day. Even if the validation happened, it would still be the same at the end of the day. It's not vanity is not needed here. You can just ditch it. I mean, I have vanity. I'm always gonna have vanity. Everybody has vanity. It's impossible not to have vanity, but you can keep it on the lowest scale possible. You can keep it on the lowest scale possible. And that's gonna be eternally better for you in every possible way. I know I play around too much, but I don't really play around. Listen, you don't have to. Okay, enough. You don't have to listen to me. Take care. Bye. I'm going now, I promise. Bye.